Hi everyone, it's Jen here and welcome to Jen's World About Art, and welcome to today's artwork, which is my first attempt at a still life. So I decided I wanted to draw a bowl of fruit and see how that went. So I go in with my Sennelier watercolours and I start with the background and I make a very diluted purple with dioxazine purple and some ultramarine blue, and I have that very watered down and I take that around the whole background. Now this vase is sitting on, or this bowl of fruit is sitting on a tablecloth, a lace tablecloth. So to do the lace pattern, all I did was left the white of the paper and then I just pop little dots around in the pattern that I can see on the lace and just let that be the impression of lace. So I just take that around and recreate as similar as I can to the pattern that I see in the photo reference. And the photo reference I got from Unsplash, which is a royalty-free photograph site, so you can use them for references for your artwork. So as you can see, I take that around in a slightly lighter purple colour. So I've used cadmium red and cobalt blue to mix that light purple. And I continue around and take that pattern right across the white of the paper at the bottom. And now I go to work on the bananas. So the bananas are the top left, and I go in with lemon yellow, and then I go in with some cadmium yellow in the darker areas, and I use a little bit of that purple colour also to add into the shadows on the bananas. So you can see now I'm adding in the cadmium yellow onto the three bananas there, and lemon yellow into the lighter parts. And I add a little tiny bit of yellow ochre as well, just to darken that up, and then a little bit of umber to the brown areas. And you can see here now I'm adding the purple to the shadows on the bananas. Anywhere that I can see shadows, I pop that in, just wet into wet, and then I'll let that dry. And then I get to work on the purple grapes. And for the purple grapes, I use a diluted mix of dioxazine purple and indigo, and very, very, very diluted. So I take that around and I fill in all the grapes and in a very thin wash, and you can see I leave a little spot of white on the paper for the highlight on the ends of the grapes where the light is reflecting, and I continue that around all the grapes. And then while it's still a little bit damp, I go in with a slightly darker tone into the darker areas on the grapes. It's the same colours, the same mix, just less water, more pigment. So now you can see I'm going in with that darker mix. So it's exactly the same colours, just less water, more pigment. So it's dioxazine purple with a touch of indigo. And here I decide to wet the grapes first. So I wet them and then I drop the pigment in and let it flow around. It just gives it a slightly softer effect. In the first couple of grapes I did. So I just wet the grapes and then drop the pigment in and let it flow around. Now I start to work on the light green grapes, and I literally made a yellow out of lemon yellow and a bit of cobalt blue. Just a very little tiny touch of blue just to make it a little greeny tinge. And I take that around all of the little yellow green grapes, and then I drop a little bit of a stronger mix with a little bit more blue in it into the bottom, into the shadow areas on the grapes, just to make it a bit greener. Now I start on the apple and I make another pale green mix. So I use lemon yellow and a little touch of cobalt blue just to slightly green off that yellow. And I make it a little bit darker down the bottom hand left side of the apple, and I drop that in wet on wet just to make it a bit darker around that outer edge where it's in shadow. And I take that around the shape of the apple. And there's a little bit of brown up in the top where the stalk is, so I add a little bit of burnt umber there. I pop a purpley browny shadow into the core of the apple and pop the little stalk in. So I used a bit of umber with a little bit of blue. And then I darken up around that bottom left hand side of the apple again. And I just sponge that off with a bit of cloth just to give it that little bit more reflection on the side. Now I go to work on the orange in the background, and you can see I leave the white of the paper for the white on the dimples, like there's little reflections on the dimple on the skin on the fruit. So I use my red orange and I take that around the first layer, and then I go in with a little bit of orange and I add a little bit of red to it just to richen up that orangey colour just in the deeper areas, sort of down where the shadows are. And I do the same on that orange off to the right hand side. I go in with red orange first, and then I go in with a little bit of Sennelier orange, which is a red orange, a deeper red orange, just into that corner there. Now I start on this tomato on the right hand side between the apple and the oranges, and I go in with cadmium red, and I just use that in very diluted on the first layer, and then I go a little bit more pigment, a little bit less water for the stronger red, and just give that tomato a real richness. So now we start on the vase or the bowl that's holding the fruit, and I literally use cobalt blue, very diluted for the first layer, and I leave a fair bit of the bowl, just the white of the paper, because it's actually a silver bowl or a pewter bowl, and so I use blues just to add the reflections from the light around and off the table, and then I'll actually go in with a little bit of Payne's grey just into the darker areas. I add that to the blue just to deepen it up and make it a bit stronger. Like there I'm using a little bit of ultramarine just around that edge. Just a touch of ultramarine just to deepen that up. And then I work my way around the patterns on the bowl. Pop it into where the shadows are going to be. And then I just add that greyish mix that I make up with my Payne's grey and blue, and pop that into the edges and areas around the edge of the fruit and around the shapes and the patterns on the bowl. So now I'm going to add the shadows in underneath the bowl and along the tablecloth. So I go over that with a thin wash of purple, which I've used my cobalt blue and my cadmium red into a very thin wash so that you can still see the tablecloth pattern underneath. And we're just about done. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I'd love it if you click like and subscribe. Click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I release a new video. I'm going to be going live most days and also releasing videos like this just with short format tutorials. Yeah, I'd love it if you'd come and hang out when I live stream, and I hope you enjoy my videos. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Okie doke. Bye.